to the City Rev Life podcast. My name is Robey, and I have the legend, Muche Ukegbu, here with me for a brand new series that we're doing. We're actually continuing discussion on empathy. But I would just like to point out, like, Muche was very intentional on what he wore today. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. It's, first of all, City Rev is, y'all are, yeah. You know who you guys are.
Yeah,
I didn't see your hand there, but you know who
you are. You left me hanging for a second.
Because I didn't see it. The Lord has clearly blessed you guys in a way. Favor ain't fair. Favor is not fair. But knowing that I was coming to one of the greatest places on earth outside of Disney, I wore, the standard City Rev Coral.
He wore his City Rev Coral hat, and
I'm gonna be here. I gotta have it. It's a thing. It didn't go fully with the outfit, but I was like, I gotta have my thing.
You make it work, Muche. You always make it work.
I received this.
All right. Thank you for being here, Muche. We love having you here and always love having you on the City Rev Life podcast or in whatever capacity you want to share with City Rev. All right. We're talking about empathy, and specifically we're talking about how it plays out in the practice of our lives. We're going to talk about a couple different spheres through this series. But in this episode, we're talking about friendships. How does empathy play out in friendships? But before we do that, let's talk about scope of friendship.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think like that is that's something I think you've given a lot of thought to, and it's been helpful for me to kind of hear how you break down just from the scope of friendship, because I think that in of itself is helpful, and then we can talk about weaving empathy through that. So just talk to me for a second about just the scope of friendships.
Yeah, that's good. So if we look at the irreducible minimum of friendship is the sense of mutual belonging, like we're connected to one another. There's a meaningful connection that we have that's shared. I think there's spaces of belonging in terms of space, size, what you could experience. And there's really 4 spaces of belonging based on size. And so I would say you have kind of that 70 plus space. So it's a larger size of relationships, of community, of connection. And in that space you could experience visibility, so think typical church service or concert or temple life in Jesus's day. And then you kind of have the space of like more of the 25 to 50, where you're going to experience a level of availability. We're going to be able to go accomplish some stuff. We have more hands. And so we also see that even in Jesus's life, like the disciples, kind of the sending of more than just the 12. And then you have another space where it's really more of that 12, like that 12 to 15 space, 5 to 12, kind of in that area. And there's a level of accountability. I can actually have accountability with people when it's a smaller number. Obviously, Jesus and the 12. And then you have the smaller space, which is more of that 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and that's a space of vulnerability. It's the deepest level of intimacy. I probably shouldn't be vulnerable with 70 plus people. That's bad boundaries. But
sure.
But there, I could experience a depth of vulnerability and a depth of relationship. But the reality is, and Jesus have that. John, James, Peter. But Jesus was in all of those spaces, and he had meaningful relationships with everybody in those spaces too. And so there is a way in which it seems like we idolize that smaller and neglect the rest, but we need all of it. And so even from a friendship standpoint, to have meaningful connections across the board, I think it's really healthy. But when it's all said and done, at the deepest level, to have significant relationships there is really powerful and most necessary. Obviously, Father, Son, Holy Spirit also. That makes sense. And so that's how I would kind of architect meaningful connection and friendship from a macro level, and not just in the smaller bucket of, hey, here's the 1 to 3 people that I'm really close with.
I think that's so helpful. So let me just see if I can articulate it again. The largest group, it's the place where I'm known.
I'm known.
I'm known. It's that 70 plus, and it's where you use the word visibility. So I'm known. I'm seen. People know to a level. And intimacy is, about knowledge, right?
For sure. So there's a depth of knowledge as you produce.
Yeah. So there's some level they know me. I'm known. And then there's a smaller group. You said, it's like 25
to 50.
25 to 50. That's where there's availability. So there's more than just, I know that guy. I know some things about him. I'm known. it's that space where we do things together.
Yeah, our lives are more connected than in the larger space.
Yeah, so that might be a space where like the people I do hobbies with, companionship, that kind of stuff.
Interest groups, if you will.
Interest groups. Okay. And then there's a smaller group of 12 to 20, you said? So that 12 to 20, then that's where there's accountability. So there's a deeper level of knowledge. It's not just camaraderie. It's a deeper level of knowledge where
so much
people are speaking. No, I'm reiterating
your way
with
words is so awesome. You're just precise.
I'm just saying what you're saying. I would have nothing if you
bless
weren't
you, my
here.
friend.
Okay. So then there's accountability, and then there's the 3 to 5, and that's where there's vulnerability. That's
vulnerability.
Yeah. And then what I think is a lot of times, what's so helpful about that, I mean, just that scope alone, we could spend the whole podcast just on that, but I mean, it's profound because a lot of times we have expectations on all of those that really belong to one group. So you've got like the person that has expectations on the 3 to 5, but they are having that on the 70 plus. And maybe, and a lot of times it's not just expectations, sometimes it's practices. I can be way over vulnerable to the 70, that's not healthy, like you said, bad boundaries. Or I could be treating the 3 to 5 that are being vulnerable with me like they're the 70,
Facts.
you know? So like maybe can you speak to that a little bit? Like the practices and expectations have to match those different groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. They have to match, and I think you identified some challenges, obviously with the boundary issue. How you budget time matters. Man, trying to figure out how. I mean, we're talking about vulnerability, and then this is a whole podcast for a whole ton of people. But church life, right? We're pastors, and we shepherd, we care. We're not like just in that CEO space, go get stuff done. Now we're trying to transform the world one life at a time. And it doesn't matter the size of your church or whatever. Every pastor has heard the phrase, this person doesn't feel connected. And it is often associated with this larger space versus the deeper space where it's like, I don't feel connected. But it's like, but you have like legitimate relationships. Are you pressing into them?
Right.
Oh, what do you mean when you don't feel? Oh, you don't feel uniquely intimate with people here that you want to be. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Why do you want these people to be in this bucket? What are you desiring from them? Because that's no longer authentic friendship. That's usury. You're using people. And so that's where my mind was going as you were talking. It's like, man, like the expectations we attach to the various buckets, but also not leveraging the relationships that we have. So if God has brought these people to your life where it's just like, man, there's a natural intersection that we're experiencing. Like I just see them without even trying. There's this sense where we have a lot of shared, like not just interests, but like experiences. Maybe I should press into that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, they don't seem like they're going to be, well, maybe I should just press into that and explore, which I think is the empathy part too, because there's a level of exposure that I think empathy creates because you're forcing yourself to go look through the eyes of somebody else.
So
I'm rambling.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
Let's dig into that a little bit. So we've got these different groups. The practices and expectations need to match.
For sure.
There's vulnerability, there's accountability, availability, and visibility. Starting from the smallest group and then out. But let's talk about then how does empathy, in the series we've been talking about, empathy is, we take it all the way back to the golden rule. So Jesus says that in the golden rule that do to others what you would want them to do to you. So the idea would be I would have to use my personal life experience to then give me perspective about their life experience and then take the action to act accordingly. It's not just I go off alone and just kind of ponder what they're experiencing. I take action to then act accordingly. So, but I have to start by kind of having the self-awareness of my own life experience and then put myself into what their life experience is. And Jesus says like that is the summary of the law and the prophets. That's one way of summarizing Old Testament morality or biblical morality, which is profound.
Yep.
So then, Muche, take that kind of idea of empathy and roll that through some of these spaces. How does that then influence kind of my expectations and practices in these different categories to have that kind of empathy in my various dimensions of friendship?
Bro, you out here asking really profound questions.
But you're a profound thinker, Muche. You got this.
I
man.
received that in Jesus' name. I don't know if I would affirm it as much as I would receive it. Brother, I don't know. I don't know if there's a clear formula as much as you kind of intuit it. Like no one wants to be alone. Like everybody wants to be known deeply and then loved authentically. Mm-hmm. All of us, we're built for it, which is very scary, right? Because love is exposing yourself. I am giving you the opportunity to hurt me, but believing that you won't. That's mm-hmm. love. And I think empathy recognizes that man, you're a fragile human like yes. I am. And so you're gonna move with suspicion just the way I would move with suspicion. And so I need to be okay with that, to be okay with acknowledging that, man, like you're gonna do the things to hurt me that I would do to you because I'm afraid. And so when I look about that, like to move with a level of, if I could, a practice. So a practice that we try to commend to anybody for relational health is seeking to understand before being understood. And so it's to say, I am going to decenter myself in a relationship, and I'm going to center you, not by making you an idol, but by considering you deeply and more intentionally. And so I think in this space, it'd be like, all right, like, what does it look like to be a friend to you? Not just what does it look like for me to experience friendship, but like, man, what does it look like to actually friend you in this space? Would be a practice that I would say just is good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If I could just verbally process that, that's what I would argue.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on. So going all the way to the most intimate space.
Yeah. Go back to this.
Man, vulnerability. I'm pointing to the point on the table, but
yeah.
listening in their car and they can't see.
There's our hands are on the table.
Yes.
It's like a commercial. These are our hands. That's right. Lotioned up.
So you lotion your hands, bro?
Do you not?
I don't.
I have melanin. It's a thing. I have, like, if I'm not, it'd be ashy.
Well, there you go, man. I'm entering into your life.
You're entering into my highly melanated life.
I'm gonna maybe you can loan some so I can experience that with you.
I got you.
The most intimate relationship that we have, to have vulnerability, vulnerability without empathy, that's going to be a train wreck.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So because what you're saying is,
and
I love what you're saying about the problem with vulnerability is it's like it's a risk,
yes.
and I'm risking that you're going to hurt me, and you could hurt me, and like I'm giving you information that you could hurt me, and so it's like so many little nuances within vulnerability require empathy. So like I think everyone's been in that space. So in the vulnerability, like I'm not going to treat your vulnerability the way I wouldn't want to be treated. I'm going to treat it the way I would want to be treated. And then I take that same thing, because even in the accountability space, there's some vulnerability in the accountability. I'm thinking about the moment in a small group where someone shares, and guys are the worst at this. Guys do this worse.
We're the worst at a lot of things.
We're the worst at a lot of things. So guys are the worst at this. One of us will share, which takes a lot for a dude to get there.
Yeah, man, for sure.
A guy shares, and then another guy goes into sage mode.
It sucks. It's like, I'm a whole adult human. Like, why do you feel the need to sun me?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
This was not a sun moment.
They go straight into instructional mode, which is probably good, because it's how we probably make our wives feel a whole lot, right? So it's
not me. I've learned.
You've learned.
I've learned in my 15 years. I'm holy.
Rebecca will tell you I need to get lessons from you then, Muche.
Yeah, listen, I could sage you right now if you
can
want.
Say, yes, thank you for not, because you have such empathy. But we do that. And so if you're in a small group and all of a sudden, like, you have that experience where you finally share vulnerably, and a guy comes right in and gives you all this instruction of what you should do to fix yourself. And if you just do what he did and learn the lessons he did, and you're like, man, this is terrible. And then that guy clams up, is like, I'm out. Or sometimes they're out of the group. Sometimes they're like, I'm just not going to share, or I'm certainly not going to share with that guy or when that guy's around. Well, empathy then helps me know how to operate in the vulnerable space. It knows how to help me operate in the accountable space. Like, I don't want to do that. And I remember like, I recently I was in a cohort and I shared kind of this thing I was learning. And I had one of the other guys, he's another pastor, and he texted me later on the side and said, hey, I just want to acknowledge like that it seemed like God had a moment for you in that. That's all he said.
Wow.
He had no words of advice. He just wanted it to go on record that I saw that the Lord was at work, and that was a cool moment. That's all he said. And just the validation of that, I was like, man, that took empathy for him to stop and say, hey, Robey had kind of this God moment in this cohort. What would I want in that moment? So like empathy guides kind of the practices, a million different possible scenarios where we need to do any number of things, like seek to understand before we're seek to be understood, or not go into sage mode on someone, or not put expectations on someone that are not fair. Like empathy just guides just a million and one of those little nuances as we're navigating through those different spheres.
Can I say something there that just
hit me?
Like, because we buzzwords, empathy, sympathy, all the fun, but like, even as you were talking, the thing that just kept resonating with me is the level of emotional connection that is required for empathy to take place.
Yeah.
Because it's not merely I'm just feeling, but I really am entering in, I'm stepping in. But it's not just emotional connection. It feels, or it seems like there's a level of emotional commitment. I'm committing myself to you in an emotional way.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard. So even if you look at the spheres of relationship, this is why I think, obviously, they're overlapped. It's not clean. Like, life is messy.
Yeah.
But clear commitments increase the level of connection and the opportunity for intimacy as well as empathy. And I think here, to have clear commitments, like, no, man, we're really friends in a way that I'm not with others.
Yeah.
Not only does that change the expectations, but it does change how I can now be empathetic with you, which is why I love the gospel, right? Where there's a commitment to us made by Jesus, and then he loves us fully and he knows us deeply. So, anywho, just
and how about
was when you were talking?
Well, and I mean, the incarnation is the ultimate expression of empathy, right?
We do have a God who took on flesh.
Yeah,
That's
he entered into our
Bible.
experience, literally, and it's just you can see why it's the core of the gospel. I love these buckets of your 3 to 5 that you're vulnerable with. And make sure I get these amounts right. 12,
I didn't create this, by the way.
12 to 20.
I don't remember where I got it from.
Yeah, but we're gonna credit Muche. City Rev's gonna credit Muche. Anyway,
Proverbs 27:2.
the 12
Receive this.
The 12 to 20 that you're accountable to, the 20 to 50 that you are available to, and then the 70 plus that you're visible to. Even in these other two categories, empathy helps you move and function in a healthy way. I think about that friend group that you're available to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all of a sudden, I think about maybe a group of guys and they cycle, and there are guys and gals, and there's a big group that cycle. And then one guy or girl doesn't show up for a few weeks. Empathy tells you someone should check on them.
Someone should check. See, and then empathy in the larger says, hey, like, my preferences don't dictate the community experience.
Woo!
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because I'm empathetic, so I'm considering you and what is going to speak to you. And if I believe that you're doing the same for me, then we'll be fine. So that's why I feel like it just kind of shows up in that area.
That's
but
a
we
word.
like to talk about it.
That's a word.
Right
the
here.
Big group, it requires empathy to not force and expect the group to align to my preferences. Dang, that's a word. All right, Muche, super helpful thinking through empathy in each one of these categories and friendship. I love the way that you've broken that out for us, that you invented all on your own with no help from anyone.
No help for anybody. Maybe the Holy Spirit and me in my closet.
That's right. The word that he gave you. No, but I really appreciate that. That's super helpful. Hey, and I hope it was helpful for you just thinking through those groups in your life and maybe identifying those groups. You know, maybe your church or your campus or your service is that bigger group. Maybe the people that you are on a serving team with, or you do hobbies with, maybe is that next group. Maybe that your small group is where you've got that accountability. And then you've got a couple friendships that you have that you're vulnerable with. And all of those are important in your life, and all those require empathy. So we pray this was helpful to you. And if it was, maybe share it with someone that you say, hey, maybe this will be helpful to you as well. But in the meantime, we will see you next time on the City Rev Life podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life podcast. Feel free to subscribe and leave a rate and review. We love it when you share it with your friends on social media, so don't forget to tag us at cityrev.church. If you're interested in more resources, download our City Rev Church app and follow us on social media. Have a great day.